Welcome to HR Doctors. I'm excited today to be joined by Dave Ulrich here. HR Doctors is a podcast webcast dedicated to bridging the divide. It's solutions for better employer and employee and job seeker connections. Dave, thanks for joining me today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? You've got such an amazing background and a great resume. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, Brent, first of all, thank you for inviting me to join the HR Doctors. I feel like I'm being well treated. I hope we work with both symptoms and underlying solutions.
Yes.
I'm Dave Ulrich. Professionally, I've been a professor at the University of Michigan, Ross Business School, since before most of you were born, since 1982. Doing a lot of research and studies and continue. I think always the best is yet ahead. And work at Ross part-time at the business school, and then do some writing, consulting, and thinking about how do you create organizations that succeed in the marketplace. I'm always intrigued, not with what we do, but the value that we create because of what we do. And I think that logic is so pervasive. I got that 40 years ago. Are you in a relationship, Brent?
I am.
Who defines the value of the gift that you give your partner? You or your spouse or your partner? Who defines the value of the gift?
Probably her.
Her, yeah. I've lived in that my whole life. I like sports for years. The first few years we were married, I got my wife tickets to sporting events. And then her comment was, I hope you enjoy yourself. Because that wasn't creating value for her.
Right.
Well, that's such a stupid premise. Values defined by the receiver. That's driven my 40-year career. What's the outcome of the work that we do?
Yeah.
And how does somebody get value because of what we do? That's the ideas I try to pursue.
Amazing. Well, I've had a ton of value through being a part of your network on LinkedIn and seeing the information that you share and having a chance to look into your organization and just the studies and the info. I mean, there's been some fantastic, opportunities to learn. My first question for you is, there's obviously been a lot of growth and transformation within HR lately. I mean, the pandemic was this great catalyst for change. We hear about the great resignation, which I wasn't a fan of. I really felt it was this great reflection of employees taking stock of what was important to them. I feel as though there is a huge initiative for those in HR to be proactive in their pursuit of making organizations better and their roles within organizations. There's been a lot of reactive change as well. And I was wondering if you could share some of your thoughts on like the evolution that the HR function has gone through over the last, few years or many years, because you've seen a lot of that transformation.
Great comment. I mean, the HR function's been around for a long time. People have been a part of it. It was personnel, terms and conditions of work. Then I call it human resources, the systems of HR, staffing, training. Then human capital, which is about talent and people. Now we're calling it human capability. And there's two shifts. The first shift is it's not about HR. It's about the value that HR creates. I'm going to go back to that logic. So I talked to HR people, and I had a session this week, and I said, what's the biggest challenge in your job? And some of them named a person. And I said, that's not the right answer. The biggest challenge in my job is Judy. No, don't go there. They said, I'm challenged to do better DEI. I'm challenged to do better sourcing. I'm challenged to do better technology. And I said, I'm going to push that assumption. I'm going to challenge your challenge. The biggest challenge in our job in HR is to help our company succeed in the marketplace.
Yeah, I love that.
Let me say that again. If we don't succeed in the marketplace, there is no workplace. And so all the ideas around talent that you and others have done such a great job laying out, sourcing people, screening people, finding people. If we don't get people that cause our customers to buy more products from us, there are no more people. And so to me, that's the human capability logic. And then it's not just talent, it's also the organization and team that goes together. You can have great people, but if they don't play well together as a team, the organization doesn't succeed. And so that's for me the human capability logic. Having said that, the line I love is, now is the time. It comes from a speech in 1964 by Martin Luther King. He was trying to create more racial justice in the world, which we still need more of, obviously. But I think now is the time for human capability. Why? The pandemic. That was a physical crisis. That was a talent issue. People, how they work, where they work. Then we have, following the pandemic, we have an emotional crisis. Mental health issues are struggling everywhere. And I'm now beginning to see the next one in the world of uncertainty, which is a busyness crisis. Everywhere I go, and I don't know if you see it, Brent, I'm too busy. I think in a world of uncertainty, when we don't know what's going on, we just get busy to respond.
Right.
Because everybody's too busy to learn. They're too busy to listen to ideas. So all of those are people. And so what you see is conferences like the World Economic Forum, the World Business Council. The topics at those conferences are human capability. They're about people, organization, leadership. That's the issue on board of directors' agenda today. We know how to do financial reengineering, and it's not as easy to build good human capability. That was a way too long answer. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fantastic. The first piece there, where ultimately it's about building an organization that wins, brings me back to something I've had a number of conversations with some clients about, and ultimately winning for an organization is being profitable in the market. And I feel like some of the sentiment out there is that organizations have changed and evolved to further recognize the contribution that their employees give to the organization, and this scale of balance of compensation versus I guess the expectation of the individual in their role. But then you add perks and benefits, work from home, wellness, all these different almost like expected benefits that I think a lot of employers are feeling like a lot of employees don't feel that comes into the equation, that those are all just kind of expectations that we've seen. You look at Silicon Valley, the tech space, where, for years they were doing all these amazing things of, crazy setups in the office and personal chefs and personal trainers and all these different things. And yet there are organizations and small businesses that can't come anywhere near competing, but with the visibility of social media, it becomes an expectation of like, my compensation is one thing, but then I need all these other things to be included because that's just what is expected. How do you feel, or do you feel that is a challenge or an issue that you're kind of sensing? Yeah.
Boy, there's so much in what you just said, Brent, that's so helpful. So let me take two ends of an extreme. One is the outside success in the marketplace. Right. And I hope I say that and people say, well, that's obvious. And so I say, good. Tell me the biggest challenge in your job today, hiring people. No, the biggest challenge in your job is getting a customer to buy your product. Right. And unless you get that, that's an assumption. On the other extreme is a whole portfolio of actions. We got so many things, and you listed them: quiet resignation, quiet quitting. I put two together: great resignation, quiet quitting, compensation, benefits, all those things. You got to link the two. And I think the linkage begins to say there's a whole menu of items I could pick in order to have a better employee experience. And that employee experience becomes very personalized. What matters to you, what matters to me, and what matters to me and you over time varies. But then we start over here with a whole menu of items, things we could do to give you a great experience. You select from the menu. You have a great experience. That experience then leads to a customer experience. And that customer experience then leads to some investor confidence and profitability. That value chain becomes so critical. So yeah, it's great to have all these innovations. And for somebody, maybe it's bring your dog to work. For somebody, it's a private chef. Have you ever had a private chef? I've never had a private chef. No. I don't know what I do with one, fix my hot dog rare. And the chef would laugh at me. But there are things that matter to me that give me a better experience at work. And I think if I'm a talent manager and I see that chain of a suite of activities, kind of like a great menu, the employee picks from that the things that will give him or her a better experience. That then leads to a customer experience that leads to some market success financially with investors. And when we get that logic in our head, we call that the HR value logic. When we get that in our head, I think we're going to build HR systems in talent and comp and training and everywhere else that are sustainable because they're creating value in the marketplace.
Yeah, interesting. One of the I guess, interesting dynamics for us here with the clients that we serve in Vancouver. I've got some clients that have 200-300 employees, locally, and whether it's nationally or globally, have a massive HR contingent and, a multitude of roles within their organization. Most of the businesses that we work with are mid-sized. We work with small businesses as well. For small business like myself, I'm our HR, people, culture, DI, all these things. Is there I don't know if the right question is a sweet spot or something for an organization of a certain size, or if you could kind of paint the perfect picture of, if you can get to this size, then you can hire HR people in these roles. And if you have people in these roles and you have great people in these roles, then you'll really set yourself up for success and be able to nail the HR, I guess, piece, as we want to call it. Yeah. What would you say to that?
Well, my first comment is I just so agree with you. You have a company with 10, 15, 20, 30 employees. You're the founder, you're the CEO, you're the owner, you're also the head of HR. And in that setting, and everything, finance, but in those companies, the people we hire become more critical. You got 10 people, you get one bad hire, that's 10%.
Yeah.
And that person can really create a dysfunction. I mean, you're the doctor. That person creates a cancer, it creates a symptom, and really hurts the company. My experience is until a company gets, and then there's a whole bunch of administrative stuff in HR, hiring, system, getting people on board, payroll. I hope we get technology to just simply take that off your plate. If I were working with you, I'd hopefully say, Brent, you're running a company that's going to grow. You've got great ideas. Get those people hired in logistics, get technology to do all that, until you're probably somewhere between 60 and 80 people. And then you may want to look at getting an HR person who can begin to sit down with you and say, okay, if I were coaching you, Brent, you've been the head of HR. Congratulations. You've done a great job. You've got us from 5 to 10 to 20 to 80 to 100 people. I want to come in and really help us think about our marketplace, our customers, who they are, what they're buying, and how we can make sure that what we do inside increases that revenue from them. And so I'm going to try to help us get concrete about our people, that we go from now 100 to 200, about our culture, about what you as a leader need to do. I'm going to coach you. That I don't want you spending time doing the end of the month reports. I mean, you have unique gifts. I want to help you and our company double its size in the marketplace. And generally that sweet spot is 70 to 90, somewhere in there.
Right.
And then you build off, and that's probably one HR person. I had somebody showed me a picture a few months ago on LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn a bit, and it was 3 women who were heads of HR, whom I knew all of them for some reason. I was lucky enough to know them. And somebody said, so what do you see in these 3 heads of HR, these 3 women? And obviously the trigger was the diversity, gender. And my comment back was, I see 3 great business people. And if I were, these are great business people. The fact that they're in HR is kind of irrelevant. The fact their gender is irrelevant. If I were coaching you as you go from that 70 to 100 or 60 to 100 people, go find an HR person who's a business person first. For example, you say to that HR in an interview, I'm getting concrete now, and I'm making this up. It's really fun. I'm looking at hiring an HR person. When you come sit with me, what's the first question you're going to ask me? And or what's the first recommendation you're going to make? And the answer often from HR people who focus on HR is, I'm going to recommend we have a better talent system. I'm going to recommend we have a better culture. If I were in your shoes, I'd want a person who looks at you and says, Brent, I want to double the size of this business, and I want to join you. What are we going to do to double our market value? What are we going to do to double our customers, to get more revenue from customers? What might we have to do to manage capital to do it? Do we have to borrow money? Do we have to go public? I'm going to help you make decisions that will cause those outcomes so that we all win. Now, I'm going to focus on the HR stuff, hiring, training, the development of people. But my job is not to do that. It's to help us succeed as a company. Now, if I were you, I'd go, oh, that first person, really nice. That second person, if you can do that, you got it. I'm going to pay you half my salary. You wouldn't say that, but Anyway, I
Yeah,
hope you
no,
see the difference.
I just had like a shiver come down where I should be having that conversation with my team about how we're going to take our team and double it within the next, 3 years, how we make that happen. I think it's such a great mindset because it obviously leads into all the other parts that you have to look at the business holistically to get there.
Let me give an example of where that comes from. A few years ago, private equity was a huge business. It's huge in Canada, the US, public firms going private. One of the big private equity firms said, we want to build leadership because we know that we can do the financial re-engineering in private equity, cut costs ruthlessly and inappropriately. Sometimes we can do the strategic. How do we do the human capability re-engineering? So they started interviewing HR people. I'm going to come in and build a training center. I'm going to come in and build a talent management system, a leadership development program, a DEI initiative. And they just kept scratching their head. Then one person walked in and said, I'm going to come in and do an evaluation of every portfolio firm we try to buy. What's their cost of human capability? And are we paying the right price for that? And when we buy that firm, I'm going to figure out in the first 90 days, how do we make sure their talent, organization, and leadership, that's my triumphant, talent, organization, leadership, are the things that will allow them to double in size. And I'm going to do that in an assessment for every firm we look at buying. Right. And people thought, whoa, that person got hired immediately and was very successful because HR is not HR. It's helping a company succeed or win in the marketplace.
Yeah. I've got kind of a two-part question that kind of leads into the next one, a bit leading and the other that'll be much more open. With clients that I work with, when they're looking to hire that first HR person, and even whether they're hiring that first HR person or not, I have what I call my 3 pillars of successful hiring and retention. On the front end, the first pillar I feel is your vision, mission, culture, values, the foundational pieces of the organization, which then help you lead into your recruitment strategy and how your recruitment of either new employees or your existing team leads into the successful completion of your goals and the strategy you're trying to undertake. And then you've got your recruitment strategy, not your recruitment, your retention strategy on the back end, how you onboard, train, performance manage, and coach. And I find that when an organization looks to bring in a new HR person, they understand that there is a multitude of facets to that role, but often measure that person through talent acquisition and go, we're bringing you in because we're at a size now where I can't do recruitment and talent acquisition anymore. And we know we need you to do these other things. And these other things are often highly intangible and hard to measure. So we're going to measure you on your ability to help us hire more people. And so my first question of those is, what are your thoughts on my 3 pillars? Do you think there's a 4th or 5th?
Tell me the 3 pillars again. So
your mission, vision, culture, values.
That's
being
one.
That kind of first, then a comprehensive recruitment strategy.
Got it.
And then how you support those individuals once they're in the organization. And to me, they're the pillars of like hiring and retention. And so the question is like, I guess, how do you feel about those? And then also about when you do bring that first person in, maybe it's the individual coming in or just the coaching or guidance you would give to that company that's looking to bring that person in of, how you kind of shift the mindset that I know that's the easy way to measure success, but there's obviously a lot more to it. And how do you maybe help them with that mindset?
Super. Let me take your 3 pillars and make one an umbrella and then have 3 pillars under the umbrella.
Sure.
The umbrella is vision and mission. What do we have to do to succeed in the marketplace? I think that's whatever you want to call that.
Sure.
Then for me, the 3 pieces of that, one piece is talent, which is your second and third piece together in one pillar. Do we have the right recruiting? Do we have the right retention? Everything related to getting good people in the company. Bring them in, move them through, keep them there. Underneath that umbrella, my second pillar holding it up is culture. And so if I'm bringing in an HR person, I want them to say, number one, can we get our people? We got to set standards. We got to source. We got to screen. We got to secure. We got to orient. We got to get the good people in. Second, we want to create a great culture. For me, culture is not just our values. It's our identity in the marketplace. So what do we known for in the marketplace? What do we want to be known for? Is it innovation? Is it cost? Is it creativity? Is it relationship? What is it we're known for? I in HR want to help you, Brent, the CEO founder, or someone else create it. Third, my third pillar between those, we got people, we got organization, my fist. People are my fingers, fist is the organization. The third, my hand gestures, is leadership. And I love in China, when you do this with the right hand with fingers and the fist, that's a sign of respect. If you do the left hand, it's a sign I want to fight you. So you got to be careful which hand you use. But so if I were talking to you, I'd say the umbrella concept is success in the marketplace. We get it, vision, mission, customer, etc. through talent, organization, and leadership. That's what we call human capability. And I think that the HR person can walk into the business leader and say, I'm going to give you a menu of ideas. I'm going to give you the latest thinking because I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to see TED Talks. I'm going to know the research. With you, we will co-discover. What do we have to do to hire the right people? What do we have to do to build the right culture? What do we have to do to get us as leaders focused on the right things? And when I do that, that's where that new HR person, I think, has a huge impact. Because she or he, and what's the measure? Some of the measure at that level, I think, is market value of the company. I mean, did we double in size? Are we growing? And HR should be accountable for that. Not just the activity, did I hire people, but did I hire people so that we can grow?
I think that leads into some of, as I've watched some of your other presentations and speeches, you talked about how, I don't know if it's the most important piece, but that HR people need to be highly knowledgeable at how business works, like business itself. And it's not just about, the people culture side and making sure the employees feel good. Could you share a bit about your thoughts and mindset on that?
I mean, again, we do a lot of research. We like data, and my PhD is in taxonomy. It's in data. Often we define HR, we've defined, and I've been part of that, as a role. You're a credible activist, you're a strategic partner, you're a change agent. The role is almost always about a noun: activist, agent, partner, with an adjective. The latest research we've done is HR success is a verb. A verb means what you do. It's not knowing, it's doing. So here's the 5 things our research found. And again, if I'm a business leader listening to this, this is what I should be looking for in my HR people. If I'm an HR person, I need to kind of do a self-assessment. Number 1, accelerate the business. That's what we've gone around and around. Can you in HR help us accelerate business success in the market? 2, advance human capability. You accelerate business by talent, organization, and leadership. Number 3, how do you make that happen? Mobilize information. When I walk in as the HR person, Brent, to talk to you, I'm going to share information. Brent, we've got 100 employees. We've got a turnover problem in one of our businesses where we've had 50% leave. I think we've got a leadership problem there. I mean, by the way, that's, if you don't already know that, that's a problem. But what's the evidence? Can I bring information to bear? Accelerate business, advance human capability, mobilize information, foster collaboration. How do I get us as a team to work well together? And finally, simplify complexity. Can I make all of this complex world as simple as possible? Those are the 5 things we found that if you're a senior leader, you might be looking for in terms of verbs. These are the actions. If you're an HR person, how good are you? I'll do them again so people may get them. Can you accelerate business, no matter where you sit in HR? Can you advance human capability? Can you mobilize information? Can you foster collaboration? And can you simplify complexity? That's the stuff that's what we have found makes HR people more effective.
Yeah. Do you feel that sorry?
Go ahead. You said, do you feel? And I said, I feel fine today.
I feel great.
How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel great. I was going to say, do you feel that foundational business understanding is something that is ultimately on the person who feels that HR is the path I'm going to go down? They go through the schooling to get their designation. Is that something that is almost like a secondary path they need to go down? Like, I mean, I don't know if it's something that is part.
Great.
I don't think it's a part of the programs where they're like is maybe the educational system of HR, is it behind where they need to be in terms of helping the students coming through understand that pivotal piece?
hopefully the better education systems are getting there. I mean, we do need technical excellence. So
Yeah.
when somebody, that's the mobilizing information, when somebody says, okay, so I'm losing 50% of my people in this division, what do I do? I don't know. What do you think? Well, that's the consultant answer. And that's not very helpful. Here's some research that comes to bear on that problem. And we do have great research. So the technical certification is great, but it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient. If you were to hire a doctor, since this is a program called the HR Doctor, you want him or her to be licensed.
Right.
I mean, and you go in, and I don't know if you've ever peeked, but I go into a new doctor and I do peek on the wall. Did that come from a mail order catalog, or is that really a legitimate school?
Sure.
I do want that, but that's not what makes a good doctor. You almost assume it, that the doctor has a knowledge base that she or he can use to help me solve my health issues. I think you assume that in HR. I think certification is the table stakes. It's the ticket of admission. What makes a good doctor? The verbs, the actions. I mean, instead of applying those to HR, do they accelerate my health? Do they advance my well-being? Foster collaboration? Do they connect with me? Do they mobilize information? I mean, the same kind of things. And I think in HR, the certification, I would agree with. I mean, yeah, it's good to get the base, but don't assume that makes you good. Don't assume that makes you good.
Yeah. As I maybe move the conversation just a little bit, an interesting topic that came through a discussion with a leader within an HR organization that I recently connected with was around the diversity and inclusion, I guess, initiative that has become more prevalent in the last, I don't know, it might be longer for you, but it seems like it's been more recent of a topic. I guess my question is, how can organizations ensure that diversity and inclusion efforts aren't, I think the concern was that they're sometimes used as an excuse, and that they don't receive the necessary attention and resources that they deserve. In other words, like, how can we make sure that it's not a scapegoat to avoid addressing like the critical issues in the workplace?
Whatever mechanism we get to those issues is critical. It could be culture, it could be leadership, it could be DEI.
Yeah.
Most people I know are not racist. Although in a big company, I said to them, how many employees do you have? 10,000. Pick a company. I'm going to tell you a secret. Somewhere in there, you probably have a racist, just by statistics.
Right.
Our job is to make sure that those attitudes do not pervade in the company. And I think in managing diversity, we've seen an evolution. And as you build on that, one, you got to manage the numbers: race, gender, or orientation, background, geographic background, whatever, handicap, whatever those numbers are, we need to track them because they become a foundation piece. Second, we do programs. We do programs that demonstrate our commitment to diverse thinking, to inclusive thinking, include as belong, to equity, to treating people with respect. Then we link those to the strategy. So you've kind of done 3 steps: numbers, programs, strategic. I think we've got to get to the 4th step. And if diversity is going to have a DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is going to have real staying power, that changes the assumptions of how we manage. And again, I love simplicity. What does that mean? Yes, we have numbers that we'll track, we'll report them. And if that's our diversity strategy, it's going to get gamed, and people will game the numbers and play games. 2, we're going to have programs. We're going to do training. And I've been in a company where you go through diversity training and you have to click every once in a while to show that you're still logged on. And to be honest, those training, that's not going to change behavior. I mean, you just do the click.
Right.
And 3rd, you're going to say, oh, that's part of our strategy. I think you got 2 assumptions you got to manage. Number 1, everyone has something to offer. And so when I sit down with a leader, if I were coaching, I'd say, think about where you're trying to go in the marketplace. What do different people bring to that success? And we all have different strengths. We all have different strengths. Some people bring financial discipline. Some people bring supply chain discipline. Some people bring marketing insights. Everyone has something to offer. no matter what the race, gender, ethnicity. That's an assumption you've got to have. I'm not going to limit the offering to people who all graduated from my university. They all graduated from my school. They're part of my family. And if you have a small company, you got to be careful. The only people who have most to offer are family members. Well, that's not true. Everyone has something to offer. That's an interesting assumption because we all have biases. And number two, everyone has something to offer. Number two, my job or your job as a leader is to empower that offering, is to make sure that every employee is given opportunities to offer what they have. So that may be somebody may only have an ability to provide A, B, and C, and somebody else may provide X, Y, and Z, but everybody has an opportunity to give what they have. With those assumptions as a leader, diversity and equity and inclusion becomes an empowering agenda for the company because everyone has something to offer. Everyone has something to offer. And my job as a leader is to find ways to do it. I find those assumptions not easy, but when you get them, diversity is no longer a set of numbers. It's no longer a program or training program. It's no longer just a strategic statement. It's embedded in the way we do work. The parallel to that, 15, 20 years ago, everybody was gaga about quality. You got to have a quality inspector. So you'd inspect the car before you ship it. You'd inspect supply chain. The best quality companies have no more quality inspectors because everybody is committed to quality. It's an embedded part of their culture. I think the best diversity cultures have no more people doing DEI because everybody has those assumptions. And you know, and then when you have that random person who sadly, and I'm not here, well, I am judging. It's really sad, people who have those racist backgrounds. I mean, it's sad. They were trained that way. They grew up that way, whatever it is. Our job as leaders and as HR people is to identify them and then hopefully help them change or change out of the company. We're not going to allow that. We're not going to allow that. And, but everybody's got those two assumptions. Everyone has something to offer, and the leader's job is to empower that offering.
Such a great analogy with the automotive industry. If we get to that place where you don't need a DEI person anymore, then yeah. And if you do, then, you know, obviously maybe that's a bit of a magnifying glass on your organization, at least for now, until we don't need them.
That's true. And again, the key there is every employee has the right to shut the line down in the auto industry if quality is a problem. Every employee owns it. It's mine. I'm not saying, oh, what would Brent do? No, what would I do? Because this is my agenda. This is my company. I am Express, and every one of your employees feels that. That getting there is not easy. That's a high bar.
Awesome. Another interesting one, I was on layoffs last night. I don't know if you've been on the site, but I did a bit of the quick math on there, and it is 1,384 tech companies through 2022 and 2023 with, as of last night, it was 261,653 people. What's your take on what's happening there?
Number one, I think it's not new. Economies go through cycles. Everybody gets excited. We're going through a cycle. I'm old enough to have been through more than one. We had 2000, we had 2008, we've had cycles. Nobody wants to lay people off. I just posted on this. The dilemma is sometimes we do need to prune. So sometimes you don't grow trees by never pruning. You don't grow plants by not pruning. If you have children, you sometimes need to winnow them in so that their attention is more focused. Sometimes we can use the downside as an opportunity to rethink our people strategy. Now, here's 5 or 6 ways. Number one, be creative and not lay people off. And we've learned from previous recessions. One plant I was with in Ireland went to their employees and said, the market's down 10% in those tech companies, 1,324. We're not selling as much. We got to be successful in the marketplace or the company closes down. We got to cut costs 10%. Our labor cost has to go down 10%. What do you think? I've seen some companies do some really creative things. We'll do a 9-day fortnight. Everybody's paid 9 days and works 10. So everybody takes a 10% salary cut. Senior executives often take more because their salary allows them to have more buffer in terms of lifestyle. We're going to outsource some employees. We're going to contract it with employees. we're going to do things that manage our costs in a different way. We're going to use that as a way of reinventing. We're going to quit doing some work. So that's one. If you got to do, and sometimes you do have to lay people off. If you have to do it, 3 or 4 quick tips. Do it with justice and fairness, no question. Treat those who leave with fairness. Make sure they understand, make sure they're treated fairly. Treat those who stay also with fairness. If you take out 20% of the workforce, you've got to take out 20% of the work. I've been in some companies where they take out 15 to 20% of the employees, and the remaining 80 to 85% are saying, now I've got to work 20% more. No,
Right.
You got to quit doing the work. You use it as an excuse. Treat those who leave, and again, with great benefits, opportunities, etc. Try to find partnerships. Of those 1,324 tech companies, some are declining and some are growing. During COVID, some firms grew because they were part of the alignment.
Yeah.
Go form a relationship. I saw some HR people do a cool thing in the COVID crisis. They got together with other heads of HR who were in growing companies. And they said, we're going to have to take out 10% of our workforce. You're growing 10% a year. Could we have an alignment where we share with you some of those people? Let that take place. Most of all, let people know you care about them. One quick anecdote from a story. There was a factory or a plant that the company decided they had to close it down. And again, so you'd like not to, but sometimes market realities exist.
Right.
Here's what they did. They go out day one. The top executive team flew to a place. It was in the United States. The plant was in California. They were from another part of the country. That night, they had an all-employee hands meeting at 4:00. And they said, here's the data. We've looked at every option. We're going to have to close this plant down with the 200 people. Any questions? And then they said, tonight and tomorrow, all day, we're going to have the 10 executives of the company sit in offices. Anybody who wants to come in and talk, come see us. We're here. One-on-one. Come see us. What do you think? How do we do it? And the answer is not save the plant. Again, you start with the reality. The end of the second day, the 10 people met at 4 or 5 o'clock and spent the evening saying, here's some ideas that we heard from them. Can we relocate people? Can we do packages? What could we do to make it work? The morning of the third day, they went back to the 200 and they said, we've heard you. Here's the things that we will do to manage this as fairly as we can.
Right.
What a cool thing. What a cool thing. Now, not everybody's happy. I mean, disappointment doesn't mean you're going to be joyed.
Sure.
But they went, you got it. We all had a chance to talk. We met one-on-one. We met with many. Got it. We're going to make this work. And again, I'm not a Pollyanna. Oh, everybody stood up and applauded and said, hallelujah, thank you for letting me go. No,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. And you're going to do everything you can to make this work for me. And I commend leaders who have that ability to really communicate both care and competitiveness to navigate that tension.
Awesome. I guess final question for you that may lead into a few others is like I've seen through the information you share, analytics and data is such a huge foundational piece for you as we talk about like the evolution of HR. I've heard you mention ChatGPT, technology, being able to analyze. What do you envision it like is in the future for our industry? What are you seeing? Like what would you like to see? How do you I guess, like, what's the evolution look like with the capabilities that are ahead of us?
If I could have envisioned ChatGPT, I would have tried, but I didn't have $1 billion like Microsoft to build it. Technology is clearly coming, and I'm a bit of a troglodyte at times. I was teaching a class recently with my wife at a local university and said, so if you have a question, email us. And somebody yelled back, how old are you? I mean, there's just so many new technologies. I love simplicity. And here's the simple message. What technology does is it gives us access to digital information. Digital information is amazing. I mean, we have analog information, we have digital information. I think that digital information informs our decision-making in a real way. And that's what analytics is about, is you need to have as much as you can, the structured digital information. Who left? Why did they leave? What's the evidence? What's the data? And I think we'll see technology helping us access that. We see it, heaven's sakes. If you were to go to Disney, what Disney now has is they have a wristband, and you wear a wristband. When you leave your room, you wristband to clock the door. When you buy food, you wear a wristband. When you buy a ride, you wear a wristband. When you buy toys, you wear a wristband. The wristband is simply an information source.
Right.
They now know by person what your preferences are, what your lifestyle is, what food you eat, what ride you go on, how often you go out. That's Google. They have so much information. Our job in HR is to access that information to build a better experience for the employee. What's going to work for you? And how will this organization serve you? I got to ask you a question. You're in Vancouver, in one of the most gorgeous company or cities in the world. Our son lived there for 2 years, and I couldn't remember the name of the park, but Stanley Park is one of my favorite walks. If you have for me, an hour, for you, probably 20 minutes, but it's just such a gorgeous place.
It is.
What do you see in that area as the next HR agenda? What do you see? You have your ear to the ground with clients and these podcasts. What do you see as the next agenda?
I feel one of the greatest challenges that we're faced with in Vancouver is the skill gap. I feel that there is a huge demand from our clients who are often willing to pay at the top or above market rates for a high performance, high impact individual who comes from their industry, who can shorten that runway of getting immersed into the company and being able to deliver that immediate value, whether that is a industrial position all the way through to that executive role. And seeing a gap in the market where that is becoming increasingly more challenging. That seems to be one of the biggest factors that we're dealing with, where there is, again, I think it comes down to the organizations are willing to train and onboard and coach and do whatever they need to set an individual up for success. But the preference is to minimize the risk of turnover by hiring someone who's already been there and done that, who isn't going to come in and say, the training's been great, the company's great, but this just isn't for me. Got it.
Two thoughts, but I love that. Thank you. That was helpful for me. I should tell you, I've got a page of notes on our conversation, just so you know. I'm learning as we go.
Same here.
The first, and we talked about technology. That's what I was asking. I think we've done in HR, we've done what's called workforce planning. Right. What's our workforce? How many? What types? What skills? I think we're moving to what's called work task, TASK planning. We say, what's the business agenda today? That umbrella that you started with, your first pillar, vision, strategy, whatever that is. Then I think instead of going to workforce, we go to task. What are the tasks and the skills required to get that work done? And I think we're seeing some people begin to say, I'm sure you've seen it where you are. I've seen it where I am. In a grocery store today, one of the tasks is checkout. Then you say, how can that task be done? A, by a workforce, full-time, part-time, contract, older, younger, whatever characteristics of the workforce, their social fit, et cetera. I'll come back to that. But a lot of that task in the new world is going to be done through technology. Right. So in a grocery store right now, you have a lot of self-checkouts and self-check-in in the airline, perhaps automated driving cars. That's more promise than reality. But the first agenda that I'd encourage people to think about is, what's the task that needs to be done and how could it be done? What's the employee relationship with people, full-time, part-time, long-term, short-term, and what's the role of technology in doing that? That's where Chat GTP, I never get it right. Chat, what's the 3 acronym? G?
I think it's GPT.
Okay, I may have that wrong. I think that's going to take away some of the rudimentary things. I think it's going to start doing job descriptions at a rudimentary level. It's going to do some early stuff. And we see AI doing, I got 1,000 applicants. I can now use an AI technology to winnow it down to 50. But the final interview with those 50 is going to take more work. So that's number one, work task. Number two, I love what you said in your example. Somebody can have the right technical fit, but the wrong social or cultural fit. And I hope as we bring people into the company, we're managing both of those. It's not just I have the skill to do the job. Somebody may have the skill, but they're a horrible fit. They don't fit the way we do work.
Yeah.
We do work here collaboratively, or we may not do it collaboratively. We may do it autonomously. We may not do it autonomously. I hope that in HR, we are sourcing and screening, not just to get technical, but also cultural. Frankly, it's easier to skill somebody up technically.
Yeah.
Take a course. It's really hard to skill them up if they don't fit socially. And so I see HR getting more aggressive at work task and then social fit into the company. Really nice. Thank you.
Do you think that the onus is shared evenly, or is it on the employee to make sure that they're where they need to be? Is it on the employer where we're seeing they're innovating and going, okay, we're going to create a school of business internally and create training platforms and programs? Is it government education system? Like, who do you think owns the brunt? It feels like the employers are innovating and taking the responsibility. I feel like it should either be more shared, or I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I love that comment. And let me be really concrete. We've all seen employee engagement surveys. Do you like your boss? Do you like your pay? Whatever term. One of the innovations Marshall Goldsmith taught me is put in front of those surveys, did I do my best?
Right.
So who's got ownership? Did I do my best to build a relationship with my boss? Did I do my best to earn my pay? Did I do my best to build a team? What they find in that research is when you as the employee have the ownership, did I do my best? The engagement goes up and the outcomes with customer goes up. Remember way back when we started, you got a whole portfolio or menu of HR policies, practices. You got the customer. You want to build the employee experience so that that customer experience goes up. I love to put the agents, well, it's a shared accountability, obviously, but I love that question. Did you do your best? Did I do my best to build a collaboration? Did I do my best to support my leader? Did I do my best? And suddenly the employee feels accountability to what we're doing. I really, really like that shared accountability.
Awesome. Well, Dave, I really appreciate your time today. It was fantastic speaking with you and hearing your insights. Is there any lasting thoughts or anything that maybe we didn't touch on?
Let me give you a bias to end with. Look back at your life back and forward. What would you say was the best year you had?
Oh, that's a good question, but I mean, I'm going to go with 2022.
Got it. I'm going to give an answer that often it's the year I was married, the year I had a kid, the year my kid left home, or somebody said the year I was no longer married. I'm going to give an answer that I hope leads people on where I am. I think the best year is the next year.
Amazing.
And it's such a simple metaphor. But I hope the best is yet to come. The best is yet ahead. And the things that you're doing, Brent, are so helpful because they give us a sense of, yeah, I look back at my past to learn and to grow and to reflect, but I anticipate my future where the opportunity is going to come. And so my final comment to folks is, I hope the next year is always your best year, no matter what year you're at. And with that hope, I hope we can create that year. Even if it's a recession year, even if it's a tough year, I hope we can, through your work and our work, working together, make it a best. I post on LinkedIn every Tuesday. I'm going to post tomorrow. I just saw the short column. Disappointment does not always lead to pain. That and it was kind of the recession. When we're disappointed, that doesn't necessarily mean pain. We can find joy in the struggle. And that's the kind of stuff. The best is always yet ahead. That's my last message.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dave. Again, we'll link your page. I encourage anybody who's listened to follow. There's been some phenomenal pieces and articles and insights that I've taken advantage of and following your feed. So again, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.